What's up everyone? Happy New Year to all you weird and wonderful synth heads out there. Welcome to part 2 of introducing the LM drum. And today I'll be taking you through some of the main features and interface of this inspiring drum machine sampler. Coming to you live and direct, straight out of its stereo outs to give you a good idea of its raw capabilities. But first off, let's quickly clarify a big feature that a lot of you folks were still asking about in the previous video, and that is the DACs. So each voice has its own variable sample rate DAC for a total of 16. And they all run at a bit depth of 8 to 12 bit and anywhere in between, giving those wonderfully crunchy yet smooth artifacts that you would get on vintage samplers. So no software emulation here like lots of modern samplers tend to do, and of course software samplers inherently do. This is the real thing. Okay, so let's dive in and go through each section of the LM drum. So starting with the drum pads here, which will work differently dependent on which mode you're in. So first off, we're in pads mode, where you can trigger the drums straight from the pads. And this is the default LM2 kit. So we've got bass drum here with full velocity and lower velocity. You got 3 velocity pads for the snare. You got the side stick. There's the hi-hat. And the closed hat is actually a short sample of the open hat, so it'll trigger a different start point for each hit. So you get a nice humanized round robin effect. Then you got the toms. And there are some variations of the LM2 samples, so there's this one. And there's also this one. But let's stick with the first one. There's the ride cymbal with a lower velocity. There's the crash. And then if you press percussion, you get access to the percussion elements on the top row. So there's cabeza, a shaker with a low velocity. Same with the tambourine. You got the congas. The cowbell, you can never have enough of. There's the claps. Now this is actually the LM1 clap, but we do have the standard LM2 clap here, of course. So yeah, that's your classic LM2 kit. So it's really down to your personal preference, but I just have a thing for the LM1 clap, so I'll load that in for now. Okay, so still in pad mode here, let's go ahead and check out the live recording mode, which is super simple. Just hit record, hit play, let's put up the metronome channel. We can set the tempo, and now we can just go ahead and drum in the pattern. So next up we have step mode, where you can use the pads as a step sequencer and the voice selects to select each drum you want to program. So hit record to arm it, press play, and we can start programming. So let's get in a kick and a snare, hi-hat, now we're on the closed hat here with the red LED. So to program the open hat, simply press the voice select again and it'll turn white. And if you want to switch back, just press it again. And also another thing to mention, if I go back to the snare, if I put in a couple of hits here, it goes to full velocity, but we can press it again and it flashes. So that means it's triggering the lower velocity snare. And if I press it again, it'll flash even faster, and that will trigger the lowest velocity. So yeah, that's how you program in the different velocities for the pads that have them. And that's how you program step mode. Super simple and really easy to do. And then we got pattern mode, where you can use the pads to select the different patterns within a song. And then the same thing again with the song mode, just use the pads to select the different songs and access a different bank of patterns. Okay, let's now have a look at the live jam modes. So starting off, we've got the solo and mutes. So self-explanatory here, hit solo and we could solo channels by pressing the voice selects. And if you want to clear the solos in one go, instead of having to repress each button, just hit tap and solo and that's then cleared. And the same thing with the mute, you can mute the channels you want. And again, to clear them, just hit tap and mute. Then there's the step repeats, where you can loop steps with the trigger button. And you can also configure the step lengths using the navigators. Then you got the note repeat, which works exactly the same way, but instead repeats the individually selected drum instead of the whole pattern. And then finally there's autofill, which you need to be in pattern mode for. So just hit autofill and then you can select any pattern to use as a fill. Okay, so next up we've got the cool little retro mixer section here, which is obviously very straightforward, and we can use the faders to mix the drums. And you also have a panning mixer on top, since of course the LM drum is stereo. Then above that you have a tuning section where you have a tuning control for some of the drums. So we've got the snare, there's the toms, there's the congas, and finally you have the hi-hat decay. Okay, next up we have the effect bus with an analog wave designer and an analog filter with low pass and high pass. So to set it up, it's super easy. Simply press the send button and we can choose which drums we want to send. So I'll just go ahead and select them all. So yeah, I'm just going to extremes here so we can really hear the effect. Then there's the low pass filter, just switch it on. And we can make it go high pass. Okay, so let's now have a look at the different banks we have. So the way it works is if you press tap and sample, it brings up the main sample bank here. And this is where all your samples are stored. So here you can see the default samples with the padlock icon and also including whatever samples you upload as well. And then if you hit the right navigator here, you can send it to a specific user bank. You can delete it off memory. You can trim the sample and rename it as well. So yeah, that's the main sample bank. And then if you press the bank button here, that brings up the user banks. So yeah, each pad down here is a single user bank. So you get 16 in total. So we're on the first bank here, which is the bank we've been using so far, and that is the LM2. And there will also be some more surprise banks to come, so stay tuned for those. So yeah, let's go on the LM1 bank for now. Now these banks are completely modifiable, so you can also load your own samples into them or any default samples as well. So let's stick with the LM1 kit and see if we can get that classic Prince drum sound. Now Prince was really famous for tweaking his EPROMs to change the pitch on certain drums. And we can easily do that here. So here's the standard LM1 kit. Okay, so the really famous Prince sound starts with the side stick. Now, even though there's no tuning control up here for it, we can still tune it on the interface. So let's just navigate across to the tune and now we can tweak it. Okay, so the clap. So sounds nothing like Prince there, so we need to tune it. But as we can see, there's no tuning option on the clap. However, we can just say go to the congas, select sample, select the clap. Yeah, that's more like it. Okay, see if you recognize this one. Okay, so next up, let's check out one of the awesome features of the LM drum, and that is the onboard sampling. Because of course, this is way more than just a drum machine, it's also a vintage sampler. And I say vintage because it will give you 8 to 12-bit sampling, something that beatmakers from hip-hop to EDM have long craved after. Now, whilst we can transfer samples directly from the computer to the LM drum using the SynthTribe app, which is without doubt a very useful and time-saving feature, there's still definitely something to be said for the old school style of recording samples directly into the sampler. And that's because we can get creative with this technique. By pushing the input and recording the sample hot, the resulting sampling artifacts really help give drums a punchy and dynamic edge. A technique that was often used in the heyday of early 90s sampling music. So let me illustrate what I mean by this. So first off, I've connected an output from my interface to the recording input on the LM drum. Then if we hit the sampling button, the LM drum is now ready to record. So let's play the break and we can use the input control to set the gain and monitor the level on the screen. Now, like I said, I'm going to record this break pretty hot to get it sounding a bit more juicy. Then just press tap and yes to record, play the sample, and then hit yes again to finish. Then we can trim the input using the encoder. And this can also be done at any time in the settings, but it's useful to do it straight off the bat. Then we can trim the output. Then hit yes to trim. And we can also preview it, but I'll just go ahead and save it. Then we can name the sample. Then hit yes to save. Cool, so now that's saved into the sample bank and we can assign it to a pad in the current user bank if we want. So I'll go ahead and do that. And then we're good to go. So straight off the bat, to me, that just sounds a whole lot more punchy. It's got like a warm, very rounded sound, especially in the lows and the kick drum. And those lovely artifacts really come to the surface when you start playing with the pitch. And then there's all the editing features you'd expect, so you can set the loop range, you can set start and end points, either for trimming or chopping up beats. You've got all the different play modes for looping, one-shots and reverse, and there's also a decay envelope. And whilst we're zoomed into the screen, you might have also noticed that there's a built-in distortion module, which is really cool for adding some heftiness and weight to each drum. So let's go ahead and check it out. And it can also get super crunchy if that's your thing. Okay guys, so that is the basic overview of using the LM drum. But there's still a whole bunch more functionality to cover since we've barely scratched the surface here. I mean, there's literally a plethora of other settings and beat potential with this wicked little sampler. Not to mention all those awesome multi-outputs at the back that really give you the ability to personalize your own mix. But we'll save that for future videos. Make sure to stay tuned for some awesome beats to come. We'll catch you in the next one. Peace.